Hello, everyone. I hope everyone had a great end of year. For myself, it was good, but I didn't get any work done as far as this YouTube channel goes. I do have a few videos already lined up, the things already loaded, and everything ready to go, but I didn't get to do it. Partially, yeah, because of the holidays, but also because I was working on a separate project. But for now, I want to start off by talking about 300 Hammer, see what I think about the cartridge thus far. As far as velocities go, the 125, 130 grain bullets didn't do too bad. They at least exceed what you typically expect from 7.62 by 39, but the groups themselves weren't anything to write home about. That's fine. I'll be able to tighten them up on my own. It was the 150s that were really disappointing. The velocities weren't amazing, and the groups were bad. They were really bad. If you remember from my original video, I actually had to pull out my other AR to make sure that it wasn't me pulling all my shots. But no, actually, the 150 grain bullets are just incredibly inconsistent, and they also serve as a testimony to why I do more than 3-round groups. You can see there are some combination of 3 or 4 bullet holes that form together a really good group that would lead me astray to what the gun can actually do. So usually, yeah, 3 or 4 bullets would do really well, or reasonably well, and then the last 1 or 2 would just go completely off base. When I tested the 150 grain interlocks, those did even worse. The 24.8 in particular shot 4 in a pretty tight spread, 1 inch. I would accept that. And then the final one shot really low, really to the right, 3.5 inch group overall at minimum. I didn't even get the precise number. I wasn't really interested in that. These are the worst groups that I've experienced in. Actually, I don't think I've ever experienced groups this big in any caliber. So it's that bad. The 150 grain FMJs, when I retested them down below, those bottom 2, they reacted the same way. 3 or 4 of them, acceptable group. The final one just throws it all off and gives me huge group. So these are just really inconsistent. I don't really mind. These bullets never really did amazingly, even in my 308, and I don't expect them to do amazing anywhere else either. I really just wanted this to be a test to see the bounds of how hot I could load this, because some 150 grain bullets, like the Speer Boto Hollow Point 150 grain, can be loaded to 25.8, but others cannot. And when I asked Wilson Combat about it, they just told me not to exceed their numbers for particular bullets, because bullets experience pressure in different ways. So I was also hypothesizing what the characteristics were for the 150 grain bullets that can be loaded to 25.8 grains, and which ones have to be loaded to the lesser 25.2, 25.3, because some of the 150 grain bullets on that website actually have their max at 25.3 just about. So that was the point of these bullets. So even though they did terribly, and I will still retest them, I know I don't really want to, but I will. I really just want to see how hot I can load them, how much pressure the brass can take, what's safe, because Gordon's reloading tool has been very helpful. Hornady doesn't have any load data. Wilson Combat only has that page. It has not been very helpful either. Unfortunately, even though this is a SAMI approved cartridge, it sometimes doesn't really feel like it. It feels like I'm wildcatting with the amount of load data that I don't have. Just a lack of support. And so, yeah, that's why I loaded these bullets, because there are some 155 grain bullets, as well as that Speer bullet that I mentioned, that I really want to test for real, and I want to see what I can load those to, and what's safe, and the characteristics of the powder themselves. Like I said, these are just cheap bullets that I already had, so I don't really regret doing this too much. I have all my faith in the other 150 grain bullets, just not these two, so I wouldn't recommend it. So in spite of this, what do I actually think about this caliber? So as far as being a reloader goes, it has had a lot of variety, loading from 125 all the way to 180, so in that regard, it's been good. I can tighten up the groups, I can push it harder and get the velocities that I want. All of that's fine. It's just that 300 Hammer, I feel I need to justify it a bit, is a really niche cartridge. So I'll explain how I even got to this one. I did really want to load for 7.62 by 39. Almost all of my brass, it wasn't brass, it's steel, was not going to be usable, so I didn't have a backlog of brass to use. And thinking about it, I didn't really want a bolt action, nor did I want an AR in 7.62 by 39. I thought that if I was going to get a cartridge with a wider base, not just the standard 5.56 base that 300 Hammer and 300 Blackout use, I might as well go for a Grendel, right? Or a 6 Arc, something like that. And if I'm going to do that, then I should buy a really nice barrel. I should buy a nicer lower, nicer upper, nicer everything, so that I can actually take advantage of all that extra range. I really wanted something shorter range with a shorter barrel as well. And 7.62 by 39 wouldn't have been it in that regard. And it was going to be 300 Blackout, but then I can't actually use an SBR in my state. And it would have to be a pistol, so even that wasn't perfect. It would have to be a 16-inch. And I actually looked into other calibers, like the 6 Max. I have some 6mm Varmageddons, but in case I ever loaded 6... I want to load 6mm at some point, but I was looking into other calibers that specifically use the same bolt face as 5.56 to see if any of those would be good to load. And I decided, well, I didn't decide, I just happened to stumble upon 300 Hammer, and it fit more or less everything that I wanted. The last reason, the main reason, is that Shaw, the company Shaw, releases a barrel that's 16 inches that was really affordable. I got mine for $160. With the 6 Max, another thing is that Sons of Liberty Gunworks? I don't remember the name. Their barrels are really expensive. At that point, I might as well get like a White Oak Armory barrel and like 6 Arc, 6.5, something like that. And so it needed to be inexpensive. It needed to be hopefully in a caliber that I have a backlog of components for. I didn't really want a 224, so 308 was the natural one since I already load for 308. And that's how I ended up here. But it goes even further than that. I think this round is even more niche than I'm leading on. Because in a bolt action, you know, 20 inches is already the max length for an AR. If you wanted to go longer, it's really easy to go longer for a varminting rifle in 5.56. And it would benefit a lot because its powders are so slow. And you can get all that for very little weight in a bolt action. Same with 7.62 by 39. And of course, there's because the ammo is so cheap. And it was cheap then too when I was considering all of this. I just waited a long time to do it. Because there's so much cheap ammo, you can shoot cheap stuff, you can make nice stuff. And of course, the Grendel, the Arcs, because you don't want to load them at max pressure when you're doing loads with an AR. The bolt actions can actually be loaded to higher pressure. You get more performance out of them. So there's a lot of value there. There's a lot of value in 5.56, a lot of value in 7.62 by 39 in bolts. For 300 Hammer, the only benefit you would get is that you could just load the bullet longer and single feed them to get more powder behind here. That would be the only benefit. And technically any other caliber would be able to have that same benefit. So it's not an amazing benefit for this caliber in particular. Oh, by the way, I just need to... I need to put this in a kinetic puller, whack it a few times, get it to length, and I will shoot this and record the velocity. But yeah, so the benefit of 300 Hammer in a bolt action is not that great, and it's not even a supported caliber to begin with, so you wouldn't even save money. There are a lot of cheap 5.56, a lot of cheap 7.62 by 39 bolt guns, a lot of cheap single shot 300 Blackouts, and so yeah, this caliber was even more niche than I anticipated, but I'm enjoying it, so I'm gonna keep making videos on it. Another thing to note, I actually did get the cutter and the gauge holder for 300 Hammer, so now I can start trimming it and I can start making new bullets for it. So even though I have videos lined up, they weren't even 300 Blackout videos, or 300 Hammer videos, my bad. I'll explain it right now. But there are a few differences that I should have done to begin with. So if you remember correctly, I originally planned to use this handguard. It's a lot thicker, a lot beefier, and it's key mod. But because it's 16 inches, or this is 15 inches, and the barrel is 16 inches, I actually didn't have enough real estate here in order to mount my chronograph. And so because of that, I couldn't use this because I wouldn't be able to record the things I need to record. And so I've decided to just go ahead and get another handguard, and it's going to be this one from Midway. This one's a bit thicker than the one I'm currently using. You can't really see it because I don't show footage of me shooting very much, but that one is just so thin, it would flex, and it was slightly, not sideways, it was like twisted a little bit to the left. So I imagine that had something to do with the accuracy of my shots. I was hoping it wouldn't, but I'm deciding to get rid of that one. And the muzzle device that I have, it just came off of my 308 Ruger, and so I'm replacing it with this. So now I'm going to be using just the thread protector and just shoot it raw, so nothing gets in the way of what the gun and barrel can actually do. And while I'm here, I guess I'll talk about the powders as well. Like I said, the fact that 7.62x39 is so ballistically similar to it is always going to be, you know, something that 300 Hammer will have to justify. So far, I only have 2 pounds of CFE Black, but some people have asked whether I've used or want to use Accurate 1680 or any of the other powders. I think World Accurate, I don't remember. I'll put it up, the other one that Wilson Combat has. But the answer is no. I'm not going to use any powders except for CFE Black until further notice, because if the caliber wants to live up to all of its hype, that it can, you know, replicate a 30-30, that it's at least better than a 7.62x39 in a smaller package in an AR platform with a 16-inch barrel. If it wants to do all that, then CFE Black is going to be the powder to do it. So until further notice, maybe in the future, if I can't get the groups, if I can't get the velocity, I can actually get the velocity, I trust that. But if I can't get the groups and the velocity, then yeah, I'll think of switching. So yeah, the trimming. Oh, that's right. The trimming. This was the... Oh no, I dropped this one. This is bent. But this is the other project I've been doing. This is a piece of 5.56 brass that has been trimmed but not chamfered. And as you can see... I'm shaking the camera. You can see just how much thicker the 5.56 brass is compared to the 300 Hammer. And that's going to affect the annealing process. And that's what I've been doing. My brother actually got a hold of a Dillon progressive press. That was a 650 or 750 or something. And he has the dies for 5.56. So I went ahead and went through our lifetime supply of 5.56 brass. And decided to anneal it, clean it, chamfer, swage, trim, did I say anneal? I prepped it all so that we could load on the Dillon. And I have some footage here of what that looked like. I'll talk about the annealing process. For annealing, I use the Gen 2 burst fire annealer. It's the type where you just stack the brass on the tray and it automatically feeds the brass into the flame. And as far as how long to anneal the bullets go, well, after doing research on it when I was buying this machine, the impression that I came to is that it's much more important to get to the point that it is completely annealed than it is to necessarily avoid over annealing. The point of annealing is to return the brass to its original softness, or just more softness in general, so that it's more pliable and easier to work with and more consistent to work with too. And so if you don't reach the right temperature, you don't get that and you get inconsistencies. And there seems to be like a plateau in softness, I guess you can say, malleableness. And so as long as you can reach that, then you're good. You really want to just barely reach that and be consistent about it, but in order to get to that plateau of softness, I really have found that low and slow on this flame is the best route for me to take. It's somewhere in the low 30s. That's the number that the RPMs, or the rotational speed that this machine uses, in case you also have a burst fire. But yeah, low and slow. It's really hard to over anneal with this flame because it's just one. If you have a dual flame system, or, you know, like an induction annealer, then yeah, certainly you need to be locked in. You need to reduce the amount of time that the brass is in the machine. And so yeah, in that case, you really need to avoid over annealing. But in this case, yeah, low and slow. I did also notice that the difference in thickness in brass, and just the different I almost said calibers. No, the different brands of 5.56 really changed how they are perceived when they're annealed. It's like some of them clearly look annealed. They have that distinct change in color, and some of them don't. And I did mention how it looks like the 300 Hammer brass is a lot thinner. So even though, yeah, it has bigger circumference, because if you were to like unclip the bullet and like expand it out, it should be longer because it's a wider diameter bullet. But despite that, it has thinner brass, so I suspect it actually heats up a lot faster than the 5.56. So because of that, I noticed that pretty quickly. I had to increase the RPMs of the wheel in order to reduce the amount of time that the 300 hammer was in the flame. Other than that quirk, yeah, it's pretty easy. I guess I should mention that there is a wheel specifically meant for 300 blackout and other really short calibers. The 300 hammer being a little bit longer, it's still shorter than 5.56, sure, but it actually didn't need the wheel at all, so there's that too. The trimming was really straightforward. This is a Frankford Arsenal trimmer. What I did is I just set it up so that most of the pieces of brass would be around my trim length of 1.750, or just below it. And then I would throw them into a separate pile, and then once I had enough, I would start measuring them to see which ones were longer than 1.750. Those would be put aside to be trimmed further, and the rest would just be chamfered, deburred, and I would clean the primer pocket, and then it would be thrown to the next pile, ready to be loaded. This is what the first batch of 5.56 I prepared looked like. So those two white containers, I haven't done anything with those yet. Those will be loaded at a different time. But those in the black container and the green bin, both of those were taken to be loaded in the Dillon. There were 510 pieces total, so that's how many bullets we made. And those are the ones that I'm going to use for the tests. But that ended up not being everything. Actually, I ended up getting another 1,500 pieces of brass or so. I haven't counted these yet, but they ended up taking a lot more time than I anticipated. So I have a lot of brass to still go through and a lot of tests to do with these in particular. But this is the result. This is going to be one of the videos that I'm going to do. Here are the actual bullets that we made with the Dillon that are that we want to shoot, that represent what the Dillon can do. These other ones, these are the pieces of brass that came out really short. So the trim length was 1.750, but these ended up being 1.740 or something like that. They were really short. So yeah, these will put aside, but for the actual good bullets, of which we made 510, so the first batch were 510 pieces of brass that I completely prepped. I have another 1,000 plus or so. I'll show more footage of that. So with these, I'm going to do a 30-round group with this target here. I think the channel's called Preston Moore that I'm copying basically to demonstrate just how well these sort of mass-produced bullets are. And these bullets are using, not that, these 55 grain 224 bullets from Extreme. Take a look at what these look like. I'll take some photos and just put them up close. So not much of a boat tail, pretty short. The canneler, if you can even call it that, is just like an indent, more of a guide than an actual canneler. And these are really cheap. They're on the same level as like Barry's 55 grain. I think they're the same price. I have those too. But this first batch was made with Extreme. And so this is one of the tests I'm going to do. 30 round group to see how well they actually group and how fast they go. It's a really light load of CFE 223 that they're loaded by. I shot this one. This was a preliminary test to see how they shot. Oh. Anyways, this was a preliminary test to see how they shot. I believe this was 26.3 grains of CFE 223. 26.6? Yeah, we'll go by 0.3. And then 26.9 and 27.2. So as the groups were getting hotter, the groups were getting worse. And so we decided to go with the middle of the road load. We don't need it to be amazing. Like if it could be this all the time, that would be incredible. That would completely blow out of the water some of the cheaper 55 grains that you can buy. But we're expecting to be more like this. And so with the 30 shot group that I'm going to shoot, it'll really show what these particular bullets can do. So that'll be one of the tests I do. But I'm not done with 5.56. You can see here I originally only had 2, but now I bought 2 more. Somebody mentioned something about shooting for hunting purposes. I was thinking more of target shooting purposes. But if these can be around MOA and I take someone to shoot and they're shooting, 100, 200 yards, they get used to the gun or used to shooting, then I would give them these. And that's really the niche that I was expecting these to fulfill. But yeah, some people were talking about running it hotter for hunting purposes. I actually can't use leaded bullets for hunting, so this doesn't apply to me. But for that commenter, I've decided to go ahead and load some CFE 223 and also further test the Ramshot Exterminator. On another note, when I started loading 5.56, I've gone through a few different powders. Varget, H335, the CFE 223. I bought a lot of 2520, and while it's been good, it wasn't amazing. And I also bought this 8-pound jug of Exterminator for extremely cheap. And yeah, this jug of Exterminator just took over my reloading in 5.56. Basically, all the loads I had for every single bullet I ever had ended up getting replaced with this one just because I have so much of it and just because it was so cheap. It's not very fast, and there is a quirk about it. A really big downside is that if you load it light in my particular AR, because it's an 18-inch SPR barrel with a rifle-length gas system, so a gas system with the lowest pressure and the lowest length of that gas system, this one, it shows, I'll say this, in Gordon's reloading tool, it says that it fully burns around 10 to 12 inches, I believe. I'll check. Whereas, you know, 2520 and CFE 223, they don't even finish burning in my 18-inch barrel. And so this one sometimes doesn't have enough pressure to perfectly cycle my gun when it's loaded like in the mid-range. You have to load this one near the max for it to be really to be reliable in my particular AR. I'm sure if you had like a 16-inch mid-length or like a carbine length, yeah, easily it'll have enough pressure to cycle it every single time. But in return, this is the cleanest burning powder that I've used thus far. It is the least smelly, it produces the least amount of smoke, and it's been accurate enough and incredibly cheap. I got this for like 35 bucks a pound. And so, yeah, I'm going to be buying Exterminator from now on for 5.56 after going through all those other powders. Anyways, I already have that episode loaded. These are all the remaining ones. But, yeah, so this is my second test for 5.56. You know, and I have some other 5.56 here. I have the 62 grain Sierra that I haven't shown you guys yet. I am going to show you what the 75 grain Hornady hollow point bolt tails can do. I'll shoot it along with this one. And let's see. Once I get 300 hammer loaded, I'll retest it with the Intralock, retest it with this one, retest the 125 grain, retest the 130 grain, retest the 180 grain. Lots of videos there. Just retesting. And what I'm really building up to is these. These are 50 grain Sierra hollow point boat tails. These are some of the nicest ones that I have for the 150 grain. Actually, 155 grain, my bad. And once I understand what I can and can't load at 150 grain, then I'll load those and hope for the best. Alright, actually, there is one more 2-3 video. This is a bag of Starline brass, brand new. What I'll be doing, since, you know, a lot of new brass, not just the stuff that I prepared for the Dylan has been bought. So I'll be annealing this 50-50. I'll be doing some tests with the annealed and unannealed brass to see how much it actually helps to anneal the first time around, because thus far I have never annealed any brass before shooting it the very first time. And I've also never expected any brass to do particularly well until I anneal it the first time. But then again, this could just be a case where just fireforming it is the thing that is improving the accuracy, improving the consistency, and not necessarily the anneal. So that'll be interesting. That'll be my third video with 5.56. So 3 videos there. At least 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least 6 more videos. I think I'll just combine the 155s with one of the 150s. So at least 5 more videos for 300 hammer, 3 more videos for 5.56, and yeah, that's, I believe, the last thing I have prepared as far as those calibers are concerned. But there is yet another thing that I would like to test on here. I have an AR9, and I'll talk more about it when I make the video, but it made a lot of sense when I bought it. But it is not accurate. It is not accurate at all. It's fun. It has never failed to shoot and cycle, but it is not accurate. And when I look up videos on AR9s, everyone just talks about how reliable it is. They shoot into garbage. They shoot off screen. Maybe they'll record the velocities, but they're always buying like cheap 9mm to just dump somewhere. And I actually load 9mm, and I have more Starline 9mm, and I actually have loads that I try to accurize the AR9 with, but it never turned out great. And it was just a factory barrel, and I hate that barrel, and I decided that I'm going to get this Ballistic Advantage, EPC enhanced cone something. It's just a modern 9mm barrel, and I'll try to get some groups. I'll try to get some velocities to show you what it can and can't do. The goal for this one is not necessarily 1 MOA or even anything close. I'll only be shooting at 50 yards primarily with a 2x7 scope. Yeah, 2x7 Vortex scope. And of course I'll be shooting this one with a muzzle guard as well. Or a thread protector, I should say. To also eliminate any sort of confounding variables. And there's hardly any recoil. It really doesn't need it at all. At most, you would need like a... Well, you would do a suppressor. You would do a... what are they called? I'll put them on screen. I don't remember what they're called right now. But you really don't need a muzzle device on a 9mm. So that'll be the next wave of videos. Will be about how well I can accurize this 9mm AR9 that I have. Yeah, the barrel I have for the AR9 doesn't even have this indenting pen. I don't know what it's called exactly. It doesn't even have that. And one of its flaws is that it really hates being torqued. To the point where it shot the best when it was torqued so lightly that I could twist the barrel right there. And because I could twist it, any sort of timing on the muzzle device was ruined. And so I had to try to torque it down just perfectly, and it just never twist the barrel, never touch it ever again, and hope for the best. And yeah, that AR9 barrel has infuriated me. So that'll be my next wave of videos after I finish all of these 5.56 videos, all of the 300 hammer retests, and finally the moment of truth would be the 155 grain Sierras, as well as the 150 grain Speer bolted hollow point that is rated to a higher, I don't know if it's rated to a higher pressure, but it can take a greater load of CFE black. Yeah, so once I test that one and the 155s, that'll be basically me being done with 300 hammer for a little bit. And of course, I mentioned it, but the scope on the 300 hammer is from my 308 bolt action Ruger American Gen 2. So I think once I finish that, I'll return that same scope to 308. I'll do some videos on 308, and I'll see what I can do. I primarily shoot these 180 grains. I think I have one here. Yeah, I primarily shoot these 180 grains. I bought a bunch of them for cheap a long time ago. They've been shooting pretty good. But 308 has some quirks in and of itself that I have to explain. And yeah, I think that's it. That's basically the entire recap of where I'm at with 300 hammer and what I plan to do in the future. So lots of videos to come. I'll try to get them done as soon as possible. One of the biggest difficulties in making these videos was just the editing process, because I didn't know how to edit images or edit videos, and it was a lot less intuitive than I imagined. So even though I've had videos ready, as in I had all the footage, I had all the pictures, I had my script. I don't script a lot, but I had everything recorded. Despite that, it still took me an extra day or two. Certainly the first few videos were extra week to get it done, because I needed to learn how to edit, and I wasn't doing reloading because I was learning how to edit instead. I know there's one particular little 2-second clip in one of my previous videos that took me an hour to make, because I had to figure out how it worked. I'll talk about it more right here. I chose a simplistic editing software, this case Shotcut, but it really isn't as intuitive as I thought it would be. And as far as image editing goes, I have used a lot of MS Paint for a lot of things because I've just been too lazy to learn. But when I did try to learn something more complicated, more powerful too, there were a lot of issues that I ran into. I needed to learn how to use layers. This particular thing, the add alpha channel, this was the bane of my existence because so much does not work unless you add this freaking alpha channel. And that's the reason that it took so long to do. It was really frustrating. Even simplistic tools that I thought I understood, like the cropping tool, just did not function the way I thought it would. And this just added a lot of time and frustration to things that should have been incredibly simple. There were a lot of little mistakes I made too, like I didn't use this little magnet button to make my clips stick to each other, so there'd be tiny little gaps between them. I wasn't taking advantage of the multiple channels for video and audio, so sometimes when I would go back to add or subtract something, it would desync some of my audio, some of my video. And so yeah, I made a lot of mistakes that just added hours and hours that I did not need to add, and that it's not so much of a problem now. It's so simple now, but yeah, those first few videos were a disaster. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Lots of videos to come. I'll get it out soon as I can. Hope everyone has a great year this year. And yeah, I think that's it. See you in a bit.